Hi Chris, how you doing? This is being recorded and it's going to go on my YouTube, so FYI. Oh no. Looks like Ian won't be able to make it today, which is sad because I'm going to demonstrate multi-agent swarms today. Hopefully have some fun doing some live coding.
Hello. I got the rune thing working too. If there's time I could demo that, or I can make a recording and send to you later as well. I had it working last night as well, but I had to refactor and improve stuff, and then it went through, fixed everything. I had to go Adobe Data and break the parameters. And then it broke it all again. Then I had to have the AI fix it. But like, I see why you do test-driven development because I'm like, quit telling me that you think you fixed it, and I got to go test something.
And it's not fixed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
freaking make mocks, shims, and tests as much as possible for the whole server-based interface, right? So that you can like know that it works before you waste my time.
Yeah. It's not done unless it's proven that it's done.
Right. And then it's like it fixed it. And I'm like, you fixed it? I was like, fuck you. You go back and you write a test that breaks before you did that fix and then prove that it works after the fix, okay?
All right. So, reminder, we're live streaming and this is being recorded and this is going on my public YouTube channel. So,
Oh, sorry, I will watch my language.
that's okay. I'm not offended, but yeah, I don't know. Some of the audience might be. We'll see. Um, if you're offended, bleep it yourself. I'm not gonna edit this. I don't have time to do a bunch of video editing. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to train an agent skill that's good at video editing yet. So I have worked on it a little bit, but I haven't got it working yet. Louis, good to see you. Today we're gonna do some multi-agent swarm stuff, and I'm gonna show off the AIDD fix command, which is a new feature in version 2.6 that was just released yesterday, I think. How you doing, Louis?
Doing all right.
Fantastic. So, Kris is a new character on this show, I think, right, Kris? Just I want to quickly intro Kris. Kris Nye is an architect at uh, Adobe, working on Adobe Firefly, and he's basically chief architect of Adobe Firefly, principal architect of Adobe Firefly. And he reported to me while I was engineering manager on Firefly. And he's built the Adobe Data ECS system, which is a data-driven design entity component system with some really cool features like observables um, and all kinds of stuff. Really cool TypeScript interfaces that, yeah, maybe Kris, maybe you can do a little intro.
All right. Did cover most of it. Architect at Adobe, Adobe Data ECS. I'm a big believer in pure functional programming, data-driven, data-oriented, kind of immutable interfaces for the data. Um, Makes everything so much easier to sort of test and debug and whatnot. And then our ECS is built. We built the ECS based upon the sort of flex ECS that was well documented. So it's an actual structure of arrays ECS. And if you're using numeric values or numeric structures, it actually lays them out in memory, linearly in memory for very efficient access to it, right? So I mean, we can get very high performance in that. Super for games, animations, rendering, particle effects, it doesn't matter, whatever you're doing. We actually even we use a standard 140 format for our structures. We can take the tables out of our database, we can directly upload them into storage buffers and put them on web GPU, do compute on it, and then write them back if we want, right? So it's very capable, high performance.
Very efficient, high performance system suitable for, the highest performance video game engines and so on. Yeah, so we're really happy about that. by the way, Adobe Data is coming to AIDD framework. Actually, I think we just released it in 2.6. Your new Adobe Data skill is now released, and about half a dozen other skills contributed by Kris this last week just got released in version 2.6. So do check those out. They need a little bit more documentation, and we'll probably refactor them a little bit to utilize some of our prompt engineering skills a little bit better. But it's a really good start. So
I'm gonna start
I'm
improving them
excited.
faster now. Now that they're in there, I can start using them in Adobe and I can improve them faster. So they'll get better quick.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I also just released a skill that would be is a good reference to help improve other skills as well. So um, now that I've got, I actually published, I think my first skill for AIDD framework um, is the AIDD fix command, which I'm about to show. Um, it looks like we don't have a lot of people tuning into the live stream this time. I know Ian wasn't able to make it, and I haven't heard much from the Wolf crew today. So let's just dive in and do it for the recording. All right. So the first thing that I want to cover is the fix command because we're going to be using it a lot. In fact, the one of the biggest challenges with AI-driven development is that once you get a bunch of AI agents contributing to your code base, they're going to produce more code than you can review and keep up with because the AI writes code faster than we can even review it and merge it. Um, so the review process is really the bottleneck when it comes to AI-driven development. And that's what I've been really focusing on lately is streamlining that review process and working on improving the speed of iteration there and remediation when we find issues and bugs that need to be fixed at that stage. So with that in mind, I created the new AIDD fix skill, and I'm just going to demo that really quickly. Actually, before I do that, before I dive into that, I'm going to show you around some of what's new in the new version real quick. So let me share my screen, and I think it's this one. Let me just check. There we go. That's the window. Can one of you verbally just tell me if this is a good size and you can see everything well?
Looks okay here.
Fantastic. Good. Okay, so this is actually an issue that we're gonna try to land today, hopefully, or at least move along today and make some progress on. But let me show you that what's new in the new version. So let's go to the change log real quick, and we'll just review some of these new features. So we have the fix skill that I was just talking about, which does structured bug fixing with test-driven development and delegation to other commands in the framework stuff. The ECS skill is the one that we were just talking about with Kris. That helps it understand how to use the ECS system. Um, Layout skill is UI component layout patterns for best practices related to performance, I think, mainly. Is that right, Kris?
So those ones, that one's pretty simple right now. For layout, that's more basically telling them that the terminal components should have no outside margin, and then it's the responsibility of
Yeah.
the higher order components to provide margin, and
Container.
also that you
Yeah.
shouldn't mix terminal with some of your own custom little HTML. You should like have just terminal within it, right? So you're just a layout or just a
Yeah.
sort of terminal component.
Yeah.
But
All
that
right.
that pattern does lend itself to high performance when used with, the
Yeah.
terminal components are only things that sort of update.
And this, I believe, is TypeScript related, that helps you create tree shakeable exports, right, Kris?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So this pattern allows you to just, if you have a type, it allows you to basically bundle with that type all the utility functions related to that type. And then you import just the name, like say vector2, and then you can use that as a type, but you can also say vector2.add, vector2.multiply, vector2.divide.
Yeah.
We use that extensively throughout Adobe Data ECS.
Yeah. So this is really TypeScript focused, JavaScript focused stuff, but I just want to emphasize that AIDD framework is not specific to JavaScript or TypeScript. You can use it with any language, but we do have a lot of tools for JavaScript and TypeScript ecosystem because that's what we use. So we have a lot of integrated tools related to those. Um, but I want the viewers to know that if you're working in a different programming language, no problem. So for example, I use it for my Python work as well because I do frontier model development where I'm kind of pushing the boundaries of so I do model research and development. I push the boundaries of what AI models are capable of. So, for example, I'm working on a continuous learning architecture that tacks on Hebbian learning to low rank adapters for transformer models so that transformer models can more directly and tightly integrate new learning into their capability set. Um, do you want to tell us about the observe pattern, Chris?
The observed pattern, it's conceptually it's like signals or any reactive node-based system, but it's actually it's minimized down to the bare minimum that it can be. It's literally just a subscription function. So an observe is a function with a type T, and then you call that function with a callback that will receive type T back to it. And then it may call you back immediately, it may call you back later asynchronously. That's it. And then it also returns to you a dispose function so you can stop listening to it, right? So that's the simplest possible way you can sort of subscribe to it from an interface. So literally more
Yeah.
simpler than signals, and it actually fits very well with with the use effect and React type of flows because they naturally want to observe and return a disposal function anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just the bare minimum for sort of a reactive ability to observe things. And then we have
And
plenty
I
of
just
higher
want
order
to,
composables with that.
yeah, there we go. The higher order composable. That's what I was just about to hit. One thing that is a useful mental model is to think in terms of signal processing. And so anybody who's played an electric guitar knows about this, right? We can chain our guitar signal through a bunch of effects pedals, and those effects can do little transformations on that signal. You can do the same thing with observables. Basically, chaining a bunch of higher order like observable processes together, and then basically do function composition on streams, which is pretty cool, right? You'll see the same thing in pipeable operators in if you use Angular and NGRX, they have pipeable operators because um, they directly incorporate the what is it called? The observable JS. I forgot what they call those. And RX, right? It's reactive programming stuff, but it's very cool. The React skill is, React. Um, I think this is connecting it with React, the library, right? The
Yeah, it's
framework.
telling React how to use the ECS.
Yeah. How to subscribe to the ECS and with observables and binding and stuff like that.
And it's telling not to do a big, huge context waterfall, right?
Yeah.
Just one
Yeah.
context.
Yeah, exactly. Then we have the AIDD structure, enforces source code structuring interdependency rules across types, services, plugins, and component layers. Can you tell us a little bit about the structure?
Right. So that basic structure defines what should be dependent on what else. So the UI is at that top level. UI is only dependent upon a backing UI service interface, so it can depend on services. The plugins are a modular way of defining your main service or database application, and it's done by plugins, so you can kind of extend it dynamically via that mechanism. So you can load your app, and then once someone wants to do something more advanced, then you kind of extend the application service as well as the actual UI in an incremental fashion.
Yeah.
Services are usually correspond to like backend services to the cloud. Generally, they could also be to some async service of file loading or saving on your local machine as well. Usually those are stateless. And then the types are where most of your actually code should live. The types folder, you're defining a type, and then you're defining the associated pure functions for operating on those types. And all of that is very easy to unit test, very discoverable, very composable, and it should form like 80-90% of the code in your code base. And then all these higher level things, the plugins are specifying, well, here's the types we're using in our database, and then here's how we compute them based upon those underlying functions for reactivity.
Yeah.
And you should be good to
So
go.
basically,
90% pure function, pure unit tests, really easy for AI to write, really hard for AI to mess up.
so basically, this is a type safe plug and play system for basically structuring your application. So we're giving you kind of a um, kind of a framework for application architecture for reactive programming, reactive functional data-driven programming. So this is a really clean way to structure applications that also results in very high performance applications. And the types really help the AI stay on track and not mess things up, omit values that they need to pass and things like that. So um, it's really nice. All right, Vision.md. This is kind of necessary as you get deeper into agentic software engineering. You may, like me, start up like big swarms of agents and let them run for a long time. And once you start letting agents run for a long time, they start to make assumptions, and sometimes those assumptions can be incorrect and drift off target for your long-term goals. So this vision document is here to kind of keep them steering in the right direction, at least in the very broad direction that you want them to go. So it's basically think of it as like a very high level North Star for what you envision is the purpose of the project, and and it's a really useful way of just keeping everybody rowing in the same direction and keeping all your agents moving in the same direction, especially as you have multiple long-lived agents running in large agent swarms on your code base. This helps prevent them from drifting off course. And I think it's very important to get it established sooner rather than later, especially if you're interested in experimenting with long-lived agents like OpenClaw or any kind of cron-based um, agent restarts and self-directed agents or agents instructing each other to do things and planning and organizing the project by themselves. Um, this vision document kind of helps them stay focused and moving in the right direction. All right. Then we have a pseudoling cheat sheet, and this is just to prepare for. I'm creating a pseudoling skill that I'm going to drop in soon, and as soon as that's in there, the agents are going to get much better at writing skills and much better at writing pseudoling. Um, right now, they can understand pseudoling syntax without any training at all. Um, but they're not very good at writing pseudoling programs just because I guess there's not enough writing on prompt engineering best practices and some of the things that we've discovered through using pseudolang for, since 2020. We only formalized pseudolang in 2023, but I've really been developing pseudolang, the syntax and things that we use in pseudolang since 2020. I got early access to GPT-3 in the summer of 2020, and I immediately started trying to figure out what works and what doesn't for instructing AI agents to build software. And so they're okay at picking up this. They know the syntax, they understand the syntax right away, but they're not really good at writing pseudolang programs just because they don't have all the learnings that we have from practice of writing pseudolang programs and seeing what works and what doesn't. So this is kind of the pseudolang skill is going to help them get to kind of more of a senior engineer level of writing pseudolang, kind of like the JavaScript style guides that are also in here help them write JavaScript at a senior engineering level. By default, they don't. By default, they write very mid JavaScript, and by default, they write like beginner level pseudolang. But we're going to step it up and help them write expert level pseudolang. All right. And then we have the AIDD Create Epic, which is exciting. It's a feature that is currently in progress, and that's what we're going to work on today. We're going to work on trying to land that. Um, we have a Next.js and ShadCN setup guide, but we are going to also turn that into uh, 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 so this thing here is a scaffold generator, right? Um, so kind of think of like npx create React app or npx create Next app. This is that for AIDD framework projects. So any project you want to use AIDD framework on, you can generate it from the ground up, like a greenfield project. You can generate it from the ground up using our CLI tool. Um, and then the next ShadCN setup guide is the foundation for our next ShadCN scaffold that the scaffold generator will be able to kick off for you. And that'll just create a Next.js app that is suitable to deploy to Vercel, including authentication and we have a server middleware system integrated directly in the framework here, and it includes authentication, including email magic link and passkey authentication done right. So very security conscious and by default, if you just vibe code an application and do an authentication system, your authentication system is going to be not good. It's not going to follow security best practices. It's probably going to be riddled with open doors that people can just walk through. And the some recent examples, Moltbook was a AI agent social network that accidentally exposed all 30,000 member keys that allowed the agents to post on Moltbook so that anybody could just like take over anybody else's Moltbook account and post on their behalf and things like that. Um, yeah, that's kind of the quality level that you get, the security level that you get by default when you're just vibe coding with AI agents and you don't pay attention to security best practices and you don't have good guides for security. Luckily, AID framework has a review command that gets run frequently, and it contains, the OWASP top 10 security vulnerabilities, as well as some of the most common authentication vulnerabilities that I see, and some of the most common data access, unauthorized data access vulnerabilities that I see, including um, one thing that trips up a lot of people is they use GUIDs and stuff like that for identifiers. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of weak implementations of GUIDs and they can be guessable, which means that if you're using those as like security tokens, people can just guess your security token and break in, or people can play hangman against your security tokens because they use unsafe timing safe compares from implementation libraries that are not actually timing safe, which allows people to basically just play hangman to guess your authentication token, right? Using like statistical jitter detection and stuff like that. They can just play a game of hangman. If they can get part of your token right and it takes a different amount of time to judge that than having none of your token right, then they can just use those timing comparisons to see, okay, I've got the first letter and the second letter and the third letter right. Let's keep guessing until we get the fourth letter and the fifth letter and the sixth letter. So they just keep on doing that until they've guessed your entire token, and then they just walk through the door as if it's not locked, right? This is kind of like
Eric, that's how
securing your application.
all of the password hacking worked in all the movies in like the 90s.
Pretty
Flip,
much.
guess one, work through it.
Yeah. Guess a letter at a time and just brute force it. Yeah. So this protects against that kind of attack. We've got that baked into our review command, so you get a lot of really great security protection that you normally wouldn't have if you were vibe coding, and even senior software engineers tend to not know about those kinds of vulnerabilities, like side channel attacks and timing jitter attacks and things like that. Even senior engineers usually don't know about those things. I know about them because I'm a security specialist. I've started my security journey as a teenager. I started out as a little hacker, basically, right? Just messing around on like the school networks and breaking into things and just seeing what I could do. It wasn't like malicious. I was just curious. But eventually I got into security and specifically application security and became a security specialist. And I've done security for, JP Morgan Chase. I did the security architecture for both of the most popular desktop wallets in the world, MyCrypto, which was acquired by MetaMask, and Exodus Wallet. So I designed security architecture for both of those things. For Exodus specifically, the DApp integration part of Exodus Wallet. Yeah, so all of my security learnings are going into AIDD framework, and in the order of like what's the most common attack points, vectors, and stuff that people exploit. So yeah, then we have type checking gets wired in. We didn't have type checks gating our commits before, and that let a few type errors drift into the library. And I also discovered, I think, that we're not exporting types correctly from the error causes library. So there's currently a temporary error causes DTS file in here to make sure that it's well typed inside the AIDD framework at least. Um, but I use AIDD framework for everything, so uh, having the types here makes them available to everything that I do with it. But we're gonna port that fix upstream as well and add types, add the proper type exports to the error causes library as well. Let's see. I think that gets most of it right, but we also switched to biome, made some minor changes there, right? ESLint and Prettier got replaced with biome for formatting and linting. Um, yeah, enhanced TDD documentation, improved the README. Yeah, and then just some minor things other than that. So anyway, 2.6 is a major upgrade. We get lots of new skills, thanks to Kris. Thanks, Kris. And a much better bug fix flow. So let's start playing with it, right? Let's just jump in and play with it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create like an agent. We're just going to go try to merge this PR a little bit at a time and see what happens. Right? I think we're close to landing this PR. Um, but like yesterday, here, let me just show you if I can. Let me just show you some screenshots of the multi-agent flow I had running yesterday. Uh, does it? Will it not do that? Oh, here. Maybe it will. Yeah, there we go. So in the sidebar on the left side, all these little spinners are agents working in parallel. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I peaked at 15 yesterday while I was working on this project. I had 15 agents running in parallel, fixing bugs at the same time. I frequently see people like doubting, like, is AI driven development really a big productivity boost? The answer is yes. So I think I've put maybe 3 days total into this particular PR. This PR is 5,600 lines of code added and like 230 something removed. And a code change of that magnitude would normally take previous teams that I've worked on, a code change of that magnitude would normally take several, like at least 3 developers, about a week of development time, and then a week of discovering bugs, and then another week of remediation. So a team of 6 takes 3 weeks to do what I've done in the last 3 days of work time. So those who say like, "Oh, I don't really see the value," the point at there have been like a lot of like studies performed on like, is AI really helping people be productive? But they're looking at very, very large averages rather than focusing on the outliers. There are, orders of magnitude skill difference between average and exceptional performers in just about every category of performance. And most people are still in the I use AI as like a fancy autocomplete phase, um, except in the software engineering industry. And in the software engineering industry, just in the last year, we went from most people use it as fancy autocomplete to most people are now using agents. Um, and especially a lot of that shift happened just in December. So a lot of people are just now starting to onboard to agent workflows, whereas at Parallel Drive, we've been building everything with agents, almost 100% of our code with software agents since 2023. So we are experienced agent developers at this point, and I've been doing prompt engineering since 2020. So that's 6 years of experience with prompt engineering now. And this is like daily frequent exposure to prompt engineering and agent driving over the course of years. So comparing like the average productivity, which is it really ranges from a loss in productivity to like a 60% gain in productivity when you look at the big aggregate. But you're not looking at the teams that have been doing this like really focused on this for a few years. There aren't very many of them. Parallel Drive is one of a small handful of teams who really have years of experience working with multi-agent processes and things like that. So when you look at that, we're actually, at least like 60 times faster than we were before AI, and in a lot of our workflows. And if you ask Kris, I used to tell just a few months ago, I was telling the Adobe team that our teams are like 10 to 20 times faster. Well, now we're like 60 times faster just because of the advances in the AIDD framework. Kris, what's up?
Uh, I never, I mean, I usually didn't believe anything you said, but then 3 months later, I'd always be like, yep, seems like what you said was right. So
Yeah.
when you first told me, like over a year ago, when you first said you were collaborating with AI, I was like, what are you talking about? Collaborating with AI? And then a couple months later, three or 4 months later, I got it. Okay, yeah, I see why you'd say that.
Yeah. Yeah. AI writes 100% of my code now, not just 80 or 90%, 100% of my code, except when I'm doing like little demos and just showing people how to code, right? So I still mentor people and train them on like how does code work. Um, but I don't write my own production code anymore. I have AI write it for me, and that's been the case for a while now. Um, yeah. So I think the Adobe team actually did, while I was there, achieve a huge uplift in performance because when I started on the Adobe team, on Adobe Firefly team, we were a team of like 11. Um, or we quickly grew to a team of like 11 when I first came on board. And then our team grew to like 20 something and then it got decimated. Well, not decimated, but it got shrunk down to like 6 people. And it got shrunk down to like 6 people right before we had to release our video feature, right? And then during the release of our video feature, we had built like a pretty good framework for the to lay a foundation, little pieces of architecture and stuff that we could use. And then we were just suddenly given this task, build a video module, except they didn't know what that video module was working, what would look like. And they gave us this task 8 weeks before we were supposed to ship it, right? And this would normally have taken us several months to figure out and work through. So the typical timeline at Adobe was like 4 months from conception to release, 4 to 6 months from conception to release. And we did that video module in 8 weeks with a team half the size that we did our previous release with. So, yeah. And we wouldn't have been able to do that without the AI assistants that we were using. And that's with a team that wasn't fully onboarded to AI driven development. I think I had 2 people using the AIDD process really well. Right? And Kris was just starting to come on board and right. So a lot of the engineers weren't even using the process uh, really well. A lot of them were kind of in the halfway between assistants and now I'm starting to learn agents kind of phase. So and when I measured the difference, it turns out to be like, 4 or 5x speed up in our productivity. And when I also surveyed the engineers and their surveys agreed with that as well. Isn't that right, Kris?
That sounds right.
Yeah. So and that's a team that was just starting to onboard to AI-driven development. The teams that I've run that have been, that started out with AI-driven development were significantly faster, like 10 to 20x faster than they were before AI-driven development. Um, so it's really been a huge step up in productivity. And we have a client right now who's producing video games, and their goal is we want to ship a lot of video games really fast. And their shipping velocity that they're planning just wouldn't even be remotely feasible without AI. It wouldn't be possible. They would get laughed out of the room if they started promising clients that they're going to do what they're telling their clients they can do with AI. They would be laughed out of the room before AI. Right? It's just not possible. So what the productivity gains you get from AI are so dramatic that it makes things possible that were just impossible before, which means you can take on ambitions that are dramatically bigger than you ever could have dreamed to do before. And you'll see that with AIDD framework. Just in the last few weeks, we've added a ton of features to AIDD framework. You know, over 10,000 lines of code change in the last couple of weeks with two people working on it kind of full time. I don't have my full time attention on it. I also run my business, parallel drive. Um, but I have a couple of guys that work on it pretty frequently. One is Ian who joins these sessions now and then, and another one is named Jan, and they contribute a lot to the AIDD framework. But it's just a really small skeleton crew, and we're doing more than teams of 10 people used to do. So yeah. All right. Let's go. Let's dive in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, whoops, not that. I'm just going to refresh this page here. I'm just going to take this URL and I'm going to go over to the Cursor Cloud agents. A lot of you haven't seen this yet, so this will be fun. Um, so, okay, we can archive that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new agent and I'm just going to do PR here. So some of you might be wondering what the hell just happened. That's a text replacement. I define text replacements with prompts that I frequently use. I'm currently working on this prompt to turn it into a skill. It's not ready for prime time yet. I'm still making a lot of adjustments. So it's not a skill yet, but it will be a skill coming to AIDD framework in the future. So what we're saying is use the GitHub command to identify comments that have already been addressed and resolve them. Uh, list them for manual approval and resolve them after we have approved. I'm gonna improve this as we go here. Validate remaining issues, and one at a time for each issue. Generate a prompt to delegate to another agent to address only that issue using the AIDD fix command. Remember to start the command, start the delegation prompt with AIDD fix. Because I'm adding that little reminder because it frequently omitted that. Put the prompt in a markdown code block, identifying any nested code block or indenting any nested code blocks to prevent breaking the outer block. Another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say um, instruct the agent to commit directly to the PR, the main PR branch. Um, how about to branch directly, uh, directly from the main PR branch and commit directly to the main PR branch. Not main, not from or to main, and not to their own um, fix branch. This is just going to make it easier to integrate all the changes because when we get like swarms of 10 agents going at the same time, if they're all on their own branches, then we're going to have to reintegrate. Whereas if they have to commit to the same branch, it'll reject if they haven't fast forwarded their branch, and then they'll have to fix any any merge conflicts as they're committing. And that'll just help it land smoother and integrate smoother as we fix and remediate the issues. All right, so now I'm just going to give it the PR. So this is how you set up the multi-agent swarms to fix all the remaining issues in a PR. And I'm going to copy this and I'm going to I'm going to replace my text replacement with this new version. So this is how I iterate on these prompts. So I'll keep them in like a little text replacement buffer and then try to use them. And as I discover issues with them, I'll improve them over time and eventually get to a prompt that works really well. And then I'll write unit tests and I'll run evals on the prompt to test like different phrasings and things like that. I'll do little mutations. I'll have the agent generate little mutations like what happens if we use this word instead of that word and stuff like that. And then I'll do statistical comparisons based on the response scores. I'll have a judge agent assigning response scores to them, and I'll do statistical comparisons and kind of iterate towards the most optimal version of the thing, which is how I discovered a lot of the stuff that went into SudoLang. All right, so I'm going to do system settings. So in other words, we use the scientific process quite a bit, right? We do experimentation and A/B tests, and we use like a lot of scientific method to make sure that, we're not just vibing our prompts, we're creating prompts that actually works, says science, right? All right, so text replacements. I'm just going to update this real quick if I can. It's not actually showing me the text replacements. Let me try again. Replacement. Ah, there it is. Okay, so now I need to find my PR prompt, delete the existing one, replace it with this one. PR. I know you guys probably can't see what I'm doing, but I'll be back really quick. Oops. With, yeah. And then I'll just delete that PR URL from my prompt and just have the template. There we go. Add. Done. Okay, so now if I do this, we get the new version. And grab this. There we go. So now you've seen how I iterate on prompts in progress. All right, so I'm just gonna hit that button and we're gonna open this up. By default, it just does the thing here. So let's click on that. You can drill in. But I love that by default, it keeps you on that main screen because then as we're delegating to other agents, it's really easy to just add another one. So if I, at any time I find um, something else that I need to do, I can just click on new agent and delegate another task, right? So for example, I could look at some other review feedback. Let's look at in here. So this is the running agents in parallel thing that I've been telling everybody about. And like, this is what I do. This is how I stay more productive. And I'll kick off a bunch of these. Like I'll kick off like 6 or 8 agents before I go to sleep at night and just like let them run while I'm sleeping. Right. Um, and eventually when I get them really dialed in, I'll let them run all night. I have tried, I've experimented with that on like in little experimental sandboxes and stuff. They run off the rails and make a lot of mistakes and stuff like that. Still, I'm not comfortable letting them run completely unsupervised for a long time yet. But as new models emerge and get better judgment and this framework adapts to that kind of operating mode, I'm sure that eventually we'll have 24/7 agents running on AIDD framework all the time, and we'll expose those capabilities for you as well. We're just not quite there yet. All right. So let's see. AIDD create skill command with validation and documentation. Let's see. Let's open that. Okay. So here we have a plan to create skills. We have this review stuff. I'm just going to create a parallel process to work through some of this review feedback here as well. So just so you can see the multi-agent thing in process. So I'm going to grab that same prompt and I'm going to grab this and I'm just going to go back to our agents and we're going to say PR, same thing, but now a different pull request, right? So we had a other pull request in there. Now we're going to do a new pull request. Same thing. We're just running multiple, now we're running multiple work streams in parallel. And I do this a lot too. So I'll have client work running alongside my AIDD framework work. So I'll be running my open source stuff and my client stuff side by side, and I'll be able to monitor it all in one interface. So usually I'll split that up between Claude Code for like client work and Cursor Agent for AIDD work or vice versa. But this time I'm just going to keep it all in one session so you can see everything. I'm not sure how wise that is yet, but let's find out. So I'm going to kick that one off. In the meantime, I'm going to look back at this pull request issues one that's working here, see where we're at. So it's doing research and looking at what has been resolved and what's still remaining. Missing documentation for the release it tool. Potential issue with multiple error handlers. It could trigger or reject the same promise. Yeah. So I'm going to give it a tip here. Ignore the multiple error handlers thing. Subsequent rejections are no ops. And this would be a very rare edge case. So not too worried about the error message. So I just give it a little bit of feedback as we go, and it will continue its thinking process and do what it's doing, and then eventually it'll pull in that feedback and take it into account. So right now we've got 2 agents working in parallel. Both of them are orchestrating PR remediation feedback. So this one is going and finding all the issues that were pointed out in the pull request, and it's saying, oh, this one is fixed, this one is fixed, this one is fixed. And then we can just go down that list and we can have it automatically close those conversations for us so that the PR is more ready. Now, this used to be a manual process. We would have to go and look at people's PR feedback and then manually go and fix the bug and then manually go back and mark that resolved and stuff in the PR feedback. AI is doing all this for us now. All right. So let's see, fixed. Yeah, saying a lot of this stuff is already fixed. While it's working, let's just go back and check on the other one, see where that one's at. All right. Eric replied, yes, is defined as spec. Spec does define it. Yes, we absolutely should use relative paths. I can see that compatibility and allowed tools are both spec compliant as is. Comments can be resolved, but Eric's agreement on allowed front matter properties, validation, and relative path means that these are the actual issues that need code fixes. Looking at what's left, separating out the comments. So you can kind of read through the thinking process and see where it's going. And sometimes I will catch it making mistakes as I'm reading through, and I'll just give it a little feedback to nudge it in the right direction. I hope I can show you an example. I hope it gets far enough that I can show you an example of a bug fix. If not, we can pick this up next time. Or I'm sure in future sessions we'll be doing a lot of this, so you can kind of see what's going on. But in the meantime, while it's working, okay, hold on. Pull request issues, addressed comments. All right. So pre-commit hook runs slow E to E test, command argument order reversed, blah, blah. So it's going back through like all of these different things. Implement use git clone instead of tarball, readline interface. Yep. Some of these have already been resolved. Okay. Let's see. It's still going. Yeah. Let's pick up one of the bugs that is actually okay. Yep. Ignore the error message concern. I think they mean the manifest path. Actually, they're clarifying the multiple error handlers. Yep. Yeah, you can see it started going off in the wrong direction and then corrected itself. Wasn't one of my 5 listed issues to tackle. Noted the comment. Promise may reject multiple times. Is already excluded from the outstanding issues. Great. Please give me a delegation prompt for the next valid issue that still needs solving. And then subsequent ones, we can just say next, 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 and it'll kick out the next delegation prompt. Next valid issue would be issue 1. Issue 1, highest severity. All right, so let's see. Bug report. Verify scaffold. Mark scaffold as invalid. Whenever its manifest has 0 steps, even if the scaffold uses bin extension.js to do all of its work. Aha. Current behavior, it's invalid if it doesn't have any steps. This incorrectly fails for a scaffold that has empty steps manifest, but ships a valid bin extension.js. The extension file runs after manifest steps in manifest. So no steps, no extension. So we don't actually need an extension.js. So this is bug revise. I think we need to, I'm going to ask it, revise. Did you look at the task epic requirements? The manifest replaces the need for an extension JS file because users can just put any script they want into the manifest. If the task epic does not reflect that in this branch, please update it and yeah. Yeah, let's just see what happens here. see what's going on here. In the meantime, we can also go over and look at this, right? Comments already addressed. Comments pending owner decision. Skill may not be needed since agents auto-discover skills. AI commands create skill. No, create skills definitely still needed. Should skills be authored in SudoLang? Yes. Process should explicitly call the validation steps. All right. I will have to make some decisions and give it more detailed feedback on these issues. So I'm going to go back to the other one. All right. Scaffold resolver. Good call. The task epic at line 101 explicitly says, given scaffold with an empty steps array should report scaffold should do nothing and exit. Still references extension.js as a standard pattern. The PR author's comment says that's not the direction. Manifests handle everything in run steps. So the right fix is to remove extension.js as a concept, not to accommodate it in the verifier. Yep. Revise delegation prompt. Now we can just delegate to another agent. So we can go over here, paste. Maybe I should read it before I kick it off. Update all affected test files to remove extension.js path, assertions, and test cases. Yep. Anything else that refers to extension.js, don't change the verifier. Current behavior is correct. No changes needed. PR review comments. Do not implement this fix. Removing extension makes the issue moot. All right, so yep, that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to kick that off and let that run. And we could just keep on going here. So now we can just say next, and then kick off another one. All right. So checkout work directly on the PR branch. Okay, bug report. We use YAML.load content with the default JS YAML schema in read config. The default schema allows YAML tags that can be deserialized into arbitrary JavaScript types. This is unnecessary config file that only stores plain key value pairs like create URI. The same risk was already addressed in Scaffold Runner by switching to JSON schema. AIDD config should receive the same treatment for consistency. All right, yep. So that looks like a valid bug. I'm going to grab that, delegate it to a new agent, and go. All right, so now we've got two bug fix agents working in parallel, and now we can just kick off the next one. Next. All right. Any questions or comments? All right. Okay, so bug report. Scaffold verifier when scaffold manifest is not found. The error message does not include the actual path that was checked. So this makes it hard for users to diagnose the problem. All right, so we're just saying give them the full path for diagnosing the problem. Okay, so let's copy that. We'll kick off the new agent and go. All right, so now we've got three running in parallel. Next. And we used to have to delegate these to people, and then the people would take an afternoon working on an issue before moving on to the next one. As a human person, I could handle maybe 6 in a day max if they were small. And some of the big ones would take me a week to resolve, right? These things can run them down, chase them down, and I could fix all of this today. So if I wasn't busy, I have another meeting right after this one. But I'll get the agents working on it while I'm in my next meeting. They'll keep on working, right? So anybody who doubts the productivity of this is not seeing these workflows in action, right? Bug report. Scaffold manifest installs release it at latest and configures the scripts that release entry, but Scaffold example, README does not mention release it or the release script. The task epic explicit requires both. If scaffold runs, should install release it at latest, and given scaffold runs, should configure scripts release as release it. All right, so current README dependency list. All right, expected fix, add release it to the dependency list and mention the configured release script. All right, yep, I think that's valid. Let's go ahead and kick that off. Notice that I'm just reading over to see if these issues are valid or if it's making incorrect assumptions. And then I'm just kicking it off to an agent to let the agent handle the implementation details, right? So I know I have a pretty good handle on the requirements, the functional requirements, because I wrote most of them. The AI helped me with them, but I wrote most of the functional requirements. So I just make sure that, yeah, this is following the design that I had in mind, or no, this is not following the design that I had in mind. And sometimes I'll revise my thinking about the design. I'm not always right the first time about the design, and I can revise that. And this makes fixing bad designs faster than ever because we don't have to. If the AI can just fix these things for us, we can refactor very quickly compared to manual refactors. That's the last one. All remaining issues of PRs have been covered. So it looks like once these things finish up, we're in good shape. And that's perfect timing because I have to get to my next meeting right now. Thank you all for attending, and I will see you next time. And this recording will be on my YouTube soon.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.